If you've been a follower of this channel for a while now, I did make a video talking about Synthswap, but that was a few months back. So they wanted to introduce that DEX on ZK Sync, but they put a pause. They did a pre-sale then, it didn't succeed, and they decided to put this project on the side, and then they waited for base layer 2 to launch so they can launch Synthswap on it. So there were some changes here and there. Initially, they didn't want to launch a token, so on and so forth. But then they remodeled and they revamped all the tokenomics around it. So the native assets Synth, and they launched the DEX. Now it's been live for about a bit less than 10 days now. And today I want to bring you an overview of this DEX. So we're going to talk about the value proposition. We're going to talk about the core tokenomics. We're going to also review a bit the base layer 2 chain itself. We're also going to compare this to a DEX that is dominating right now on base layer 2, and just to give you an idea of what to expect in regards to where you want to park your money eventually. Alright, so starting things off, I want to mention that this is the first audited DEX on the base layer 2. Alright, so this is not something that I'm making up. If you go right now on DeFi Llama and you check the top DEXs and you go one by one and you try to fetch an audit report, you wouldn't be able to. Now you can easily access the audit report from PeckShield, but just a few highlights here and there so you can understand what I'm talking about. They did highlight 6 general issues or findings, so to speak, and they range from medium to low. So there's no high, there's no critical. And 5 of 6 were resolved completely. One has been mitigated, meaning has been rendered useless. And if you look at the outcomes and if you look at the titles of these issues, so to speak, they're not really issues, right? They're more of something that is better to do in order to give a best or the best user experience overall. So that's one. 2, like I said at the beginning, they decided to revamp the tokenomics. So they looked at their shortcomings in Cyberswap and they decided to adopt what I like to call, and what is currently commonly known as a hybrid token model. Because they want to curb inflation, they want to reduce the impact that emissions have on the DEX model itself. And with that, I'm gonna talk about the hybrid model soon, and I'm gonna reference that in the tokenomics part. All right, now they have many things going on. They did officially announce a partnership with Axelar, which is the official bridge for the base layer 2. So they're the first ones, or one of the first ones, to bring a cross-chain bridge here, but they're not adopting their native USDC token or coin. They're just adopting their own, not their own, but the Base's own bridged USDC coin. And judging by the Telegram, judging by the team's effort, judging by whatever they're planning to roll out, with V3 coming soon and a futures contract also coming to Synthswap, you can clearly see that this team is honestly hard at work. All right, so they're trying to roll out many things. They also rolled their DEX ahead of the base mainnet, which went live yesterday, by the way. So they're out there. They want to make their DEX the Camelot of Arbitrum, if you're familiar with that DEX. Anyways, let's move forward a bit. Let's talk about the main thing, because at the end of the day, a DEX is as powerful and is as successful as its native asset and the model it adopts to keep that asset cash flow in versus cash flow out. Now, like I said, they do adopt the hybrid model, all right? So that's very important to understand. And the hybrid model is that they have 2 tokens. So they have the traded one, Synth, and a vested model, XSynth. Now, this is not something that they created. This exists, and it started all with Grail, so the native asset of Camelot, the DEX I just referenced, all right? So they do have this model going on for them, and because of it, it did help a lot the price action of their native asset. Will be seen soon. So the hybrid model will both be used in yield farms. So whenever you farm, whenever you want to enter one of their yield farms, you get both. However, right now, you only have 3 yield farms and 1 pool, because you have you have 3 liquidity pool coin combinations, and you have 1 pool with the wrapped ETH, but this pool actually requires a 5% deposit fee, just because it's simpler to get in and get out. All right, so no impermanent loss here. Now, for now, after completion of the first 2 weeks, you're only gonna earn XSynth as a reward, and this is the one going right now. And what they're doing is that they're not putting dynamic APRs in terms of just letting the market set them in. They're given a specific allocation based on how much there is in the pool. So you're gonna earn depending on how much you have, but the allocation is limited. All right, so you can see that allocation in XSynth. So people who are acquiring the earliest in terms of adoption, they'll get more XSynth than the rest. All right, and that brings me to the tokenomics section of Synth itself. So Synth only has a max supply of 250k. If you look at the white paper, if you look at all the breakdowns, which I'm not gonna do here because you can do that yourself, I'm just highlighting the main stuff. You can see that they're actually attributing the lowest portion of the total supply to emissions, which is, if you do the math, 87.5k. So overall, only 87.5k Synth tokens will be emitted and given to people who are farming with their liquidity on the platform. If you think about it, that's peanuts, all right? And the starting supply is right now about 20k. Now let's talk about the other side of the tokenomics, and that's XSynth. So the hybrid model I just discussed. And here is where things get interesting, because okay, you earn that synthetic token, but what are you gonna do with it? All right, so you have 3 utilities, so to speak, behind this token, behind this asset. One, and that's the main one that everyone is going after, is that you're gonna stake XSynth to earn portion of the real yield generated on the DEX. All right, right now it's in wrapped ETH. You stake your XSynth and you take the portion that you are entitled to. That's 1. 2, governance, of course. So you're going to be entitled in future decisions in regards to whatever happens to the platform. And 3, future IDO allocations. Only holders of XSynth will be allowed to participate at the, from the get-go. All right, and that's very important. Now, one thing to understand is that once you enter and stake your XSynth, you can unstake, but you're going to lose 5% of the value. That's 1. And 2, acquiring this can be done, like I said, through yield farms, or you can buy synth from the main market and then exchange it for XSynth, and then you can stake that asset. And you can go the other way around. So if you have XSynth and you want to redeem it for synth again, you can vest it for 2 weeks to get 50% of the value, or for 90 days to get the full value, meaning you get 1-to-1 at the end of the day, or the 19 days, so to speak. So this is essentially the full-blown picture when it comes to the hybrid model that Synthswap is adopting, and that's very important. That's something that you should understand if you want to invest in this, all right? You need to understand what you're getting yourself into. If you're someone who's chasing short-term yield, you might as well look at the BASE DEX that has the highest TVL and that is attracting money right now. Chase that. But if you want to set up shop, chill, and try to position yourself for future and long-term gains, it's a different story, right? And I'm gonna get to that shortly. Now, speaking of the chain itself, there are a few things that you need to understand about BASE L2, because it's still kind of in its very early stages. If you compare this to Arbitrum, it's super early. And that is something that you can deduct if you go on DeFi Llama and you look at the TVL right now, and the growth of TVL, it's following a similar trajectory, all right? So like I said, mainnet launched, so more people are aware of this, and you can see the chart. It's gonna blow past 60 million, and I think it will keep going up for the short term, for the short term at least. Now, volume is almost 50% of the total value locked, which is also something very important. So it is attracting funds, it is attracting volume, and that's something that you should be aware of. Now, again, This chain is an ETH layer 2 chain, so it adopts rollups and it leverages the main chain's security, meaning it's cheap and fast. All right, rollups were discussed on this channel, so you can go ahead. There's a video there that you can reference and they can understand what that means. All right. The second main point of the chain is that it's backed by Coinbase. So it's essentially the SEX's chain, so to speak. Not directly, but indirectly. Meaning, the most regulated centralized exchange on the market is backing that chain, all right? And we're talking about 130 billion asset under management within Coinbase, and it's a publicly traded company with a publicly traded stock that is backing this. So that brings me to the third point, and that is the institutional adoption that BASE layer 2 could see. However, that's not gonna happen if there won't be any KYC required because of the rugs and because of the future rug pulls and scam that might occur and that have already occurred on the chain actually, and that drove the sharp drop in its TVL at first. So if that were to happen, institutional money will flow, but that's also a very high risk of centralization. So keep that in mind. So nothing comes cheap. There's always a cost to pay if you want gains. So that's something that you should keep in mind when it comes to BASE layer 2. And I'm gonna finish this because I think I spoke enough already, honestly. I'm gonna finish this by just comparing Synthswap to a DEX that is raging right now on the chain, and it's called BASE Swap. All right, it's very simple, following the native name of the chain. So BASE Swap right now, unfortunately, in my personal opinion, is attracting more money due to a few things. First of all, the total token supply of BASE Swap is 10 million compared to 250k in Synthswap. They adopt a simple model, an inflationary model, meaning 8.6 million out of this 10 million will be given to yield farmers. And that's a lot. That's most of the supply versus, like I said, the smallest portion of the supply in Synthswap. So like I said, simple model, you buy the asset or you enter the yield farms with any pair. There are several pairs available right now, and then you get that token, and then you can sell it or you can stake it to earn USDC or ETH generated by the trading volume. All right, so that's how it works versus whatever I just explained, so the hybrid model. So there's nothing complicated here. Even the UI is pretty simple, pretty basic, and I would argue that it's a bit on the horrendous side, but anyways. And that is the reason why initial liquidity is rushing towards it, all right? Because it's simple, they want to earn as much, and then most probably they will leave. We've seen this pattern time and time again, with several DEXs launching, giving high emissions at the beginning, price rises quickly, and then boom, all right? I'm gonna show you the charts shortly anyways. And at the end of the day, because of this, they have about 29 million in total value locked versus just a million on Synthswap. So again, like I said, it's on you, it's you who decides what you want to do. So the way I see this right now is that people are rushing to get as much money as possible from something like BASE Swap to eventually park it somewhere where they can rest assured that even though they're just going to be earning trickles in terms of yield, but that will sustain long term. Like I said, look at these charts here. So if you look at Synthswap, yes, it's a good chart, but it's not as impressive, so to speak, right now, at least if you compare it to the BASE Swap chart, all right? But going back and referencing my previous point, we've seen this pattern time and time again. A huge rise followed by a meteoric fall, all right? So that's how it goes when it comes to simple yet attractive models in the DEXs, people chasing initial yield versus people chasing long-term yield. Now, if you look at the UI itself, I'm gonna go and click on BASE Swap. It's baseswap. Yeah. And this is what I mean by a very simple UI that doesn't even require you much to understand what's going on. So even at the front page, you cannot really see the socials, you cannot get a glimpse of the white paper, you have to click on swap and then drop down, and then you can, you know, get a glimpse of everything going on in regards to socials and docs. So it's not easy to navigate, and I don't really like the UI itself. But that's besides the point, all right? So it doesn't really require a beautiful UI to attract money, because at the end of the day, like I said, it's just an initial gold rush. And going back, I said that the hybrid model has been adopted by Camelot, aka Grail, its native asset, and you can clearly see that the rises in the token initially are following the pattern of low emissions, and at the end of the day, people getting in, staking their X Grail and earning real yield. So if we were to follow a similar pattern, we will be seeing, hopefully, a meteoric rise in the token asset price. But that's all remains to be seen. It's just speculation. Doesn't mean that it will follow it exactly. It might mirror it somehow, but not fully. Anyways, I think that's enough for today. I just wanted to introduce this. I just wanted to talk about the base layer 2 chain, and I also wanted to reference what's out there and for you to understand how to make the comparison and to choose wherever you want to go in the end. You can diversify now and then migrate somewhere else, but again, it's your decision. Hopefully this brought you more clarity. Hopefully this will help you make that decision eventually if you decide to come to the base chain. And one more thing I want to mention, and that's the last thing I promised, is that remember that as an early adopter in a chain, in an ETH layer 2 chain or others, you are potentially, also highly speculated statement here, you will potentially be allowed to get a portion of the future airdrop if they do decide to release a token. But again, this is all something that remains to be seen. We don't know. All right, so like I said, thank you if you stuck around till the end. I really hope I brought you some value with this, and I advise you to check our Telegram group. Honestly, this is a place where mature, like-minded individuals are hanging out. We share ideas, we share projects, and we don't talk bullshit. As long as you're somebody who respects other people's opinion and you're still within the norms of, like I said, respect and acknowledgement, you're more than welcome to join. Nobody is gonna get judged for whatever they're gonna be saying, all right? So consider this, link in the description. And with that, see you in the next one. Have a good one.